I Survived Hurricane Katrina, Chapter 6. They sped through the lower 9 and crossed the St. Claude Avenue Bridge. They drove past the bakery where Mom had worked before Cleo was born. She had learned how to make Barry's favorite caramel cake there. Mom's dream was to open her own bakery, but they didn't have the money for that now. But one day, Mom always said, one day. She said those words so often they had become the Tucker family motto. One day, Barry's dad would have a deal with a record label. One day, they'd get rid of their dented old Honda and buy a nice new car. Maybe even one day, Barry wouldn't be so scared of Abe McKay and his friends. One day. They drove a few more blocks, and then Dad pulled up in front of Lightning's, the club where he and his band played most Thursday nights. The owner, Dave Rivet, was one of Dad's closest friends. Barry had known him since before he could walk. "Why are we stopping?" Barry asked. "Dad wants to make sure Uncle Dave is leaving," Mom said. Uncle Dave had spotted their car through the window. He came outside and hustled over to them, his big belly shaking. Uncle Dave had a smile that made you feel like he'd been waiting his whole life to see you. Dad stuck his arm out the window. Uncle Dave shook Dad's hand and blew a kiss to Mom. He peered into the backseat. "Hey there, Barry! Hello there, Princess!" he boomed, his words stretched out by his thick drawl. "Grab your bag," Dad said. "We'll make room for you." Uncle Dave peered at the little space between Barry and Cleo and laughed. "You gonna tie me to the roof?" he asked. But Dad's expression was serious. "They're telling everyone to leave," he said. "That means you too." "Someone needs to keep an eye on our city," Uncle Dave said. "I'm keeping the club open so folks have a place to go." "I don't like it," Dad said. "This place will be fine," Dave said, "and so will I." Barry could tell that Uncle Dave wasn't changing his mind. Dad grabbed Uncle Dave's hand again. "You take care," Dad said. "And if you change your mind, I'm right here," Uncle Dave said. "I already told some folks. Don't go to the Superdome. Just come to Lightning's. I have my generator and about 1,000,000 hot dogs." "We'll keep that in mind," Dad said. Uncle Dave put his hands on Dad's shoulders. "And I better see you this Thursday for the show." Dad laughed and started up the engine. "Let's hope." "Isn't it a bad idea for him to stay?" Barry asked once they had driven away. "This neighborhood doesn't usually get flooded," Dad said. "It's a bit higher than the rest of the city. And let's face it, if anyone can keep a hurricane away, it's Dave," Mom said. They sped toward Interstate 10, but the closer they got, the heavier the traffic became. Soon their car was standing still. Barry opened his window and stuck his head out. The line of cars and trucks stretched as far as he could see. The hot and sticky air stunk of car exhaust. Dad clicked on the radio and punched the buttons until he found a traffic report. The news was terrible. Cars were backed up for hundreds of miles on roads leading out of the city. "This will take all day," Mom said softly, reaching into the cooler and taking out a blueberry muffin. Dad patted her leg. Cleo fussed, and Barry tried to distract her with one of his stories. An hour went by, and the car didn't budge. Dad had to turn off the air conditioner so the engine wouldn't overheat. Cleo whined and moaned and finally fell asleep. Another hour passed. They'd moved just a few feet. Barry's shirt was soaked with sweat. At this rate, it would be hours before they even got onto the highway. And then they had more than 300 miles to drive. What if they were stuck in traffic when the storm hit? Before Barry could ask that scary question, Cleo woke up and started to wail. And then, as Barry was reaching for her favorite stuffed poodle, a wave of warm soup splashed across his lap. Except it wasn't soup. Cleo had thrown up. She threw up again, this time into the front seat, and again onto the floor. There was a moment of shocked silence, and then Cleo burst into tears. She wailed. The awful smell rose in the car. Barry put his hands over his face, which made Cleo scream more. Mom unhooked her seatbelt and scrambled into the back seat. Dad rummaged in the glove compartment and found a wad of napkins. Mom started to wipe off Cleo's face. "This little girl is burning up," Mom said. Barry reached over to feel Cleo's forehead. She was boiling. "What's wrong?" Barry asked. His heart was racing. "I'm sure she just has a bug," Dad said. "She'll be all right." Mom gave Cleo a sip of water. "It's okay, baby," she said. "Just try to settle down. You'll feel better soon." But Cleo threw up again and again. She screamed so loudly people in the other lanes peered out their car windows. Mom and Dad looked at each other, and Barry understood exactly what they were thinking. There was no way they could get on the highway with Cleo that sick. Sure enough, Dad pulled out of the line of traffic and pointed the car back toward home.